doing some edge bonding with the main man, Stewart Beggs, or Stewart as everyone knows him. Hope everyone's enjoying the start of their long weekend. Well, hopefully not everyone's working. Just wait for Stu now, get him on. So we're gonna go through a whole case really, or edge bonding start to finish. Oh hey!
Hello.
Here he is. Hey buddy.
You right?
I'm good, man. You well?
Yeah, good. Thanks. I'm just trying to turn the volume up. Good.
You got your drink in hand then for the long
Got
weekend?
my drink in hand. Yes. Good to go.
I'm normally on the water, but I thought we never actually hang out without a drink in hand, so it wouldn't feel right, would it?
I know. Yeah. It's been a while now.
Well, we'll sort it out soon, won't we?
Yeah, definitely. Get some wine in.
Yeah, saw that. Hey, Rona, we got Rona on today. That's you can tell we're not talking about dentures. So, how man, were you at work today?
Yeah, I was good. Yeah, I was quite busy. Everyone's trying to rush in before the weekend, I guess. What about you?
I was off today. Thursday's off.
Nice.
I need it. I need
Quite
it for all the April Fool's Day. And I'm really gutted I didn't think of the April Fool's pun. I'm absolutely fuming about that.
Yeah, I was a bit slow this year. We're trying to get my boss, but we couldn't think of anything.
So, man, any bonding today, or just a normal day?
No, but lots of them. Sorry, I think talking. Lots of Invisalign cases today.
Yeah.
So like getting things ready for bonding, but yeah, a nice CEREC case. Obviously, some photos up soon. Other than that, yeah, pretty chill.
Someone wants to know if you have veneers. We're straight into the group questions.
I do not have veneers. These are my natural teeth. I had braces as a teenager, and then I did Invisalign on myself like 2 years ago.
Yeah, I remember that. Yeah.
Bit of self-treatment, always good. Yeah.
So, do you want to just give anyone an intro? Because half my followers are technicians, so if you want to give everyone a little intro about yourself, and we'll take it from there and get cracking.
Yeah. So I'm Stuart. I am a general dentist. I work in central London in a private practice. I've graduated in 2015 from Newcastle. I did my foundation year in London after that. I was in the Eastman scheme, and then I got a job in a mixed practice right beside Euston Station, which is a great job. I was there for I literally just finished last year. And then I've been moved over to private practice, and I'm really enjoying working there. So that's pretty much my life story.
And you're at Bow, right?
Yep, Boolean Dental. So right in the city, so right beside St Paul's and Bank stations.
How's that been with the COVID situation? I know I've got other people who are working sort of the Harley Street things and saying that it's gone a little bit quiet because obviously the clientele aren't in their offices and things, or is that not mainly your sort of clientele?
We've been really busy.
Yeah.
So yeah, we've been really busy. Luckily, there's a couple of dentists. There's one dentist that works in Israel, and he commutes back every other week normally.
What?
But he can't come back, obviously, so I've been seeing all of his patients. And then
okay.
He travels from Italy every other week as well, so I've been seeing her patients. So
that's mad, man.
But yeah, no, we've been pretty busy. So I'm actually surprised how busy it is when the streets are absolutely empty. But it's getting so much busier in the city.
Yeah, I suppose it will be as it's going to start sort of opening up again properly, isn't it?
Yeah, but it's getting busier. What about you? How have you been?
We've been good. I mean, I've been getting all the patients that used to work in the city and go to dentists in the city, and they're now moved out to
the suburbs,
their little village outside Reading, and literally I had two guys working Canary Wharf normally, and they see some dentists in the city there, and they've just gone, we're moving out here. I'm going to go in twice a week moving forward, and so it's been quite good for us really.
Yeah.
So I think it's just it's a bit weird in the city. I don't know. But good that you haven't been affected and you picked up 3 dentist work.
Yeah. Don't want them to come back.
Yeah. Want to keep those travel restrictions on. All right, let's jump into it, man. So we had sort of 4 main things that people wanted to cover, and you sort of already alluded to it with things like Invisalign and stuff. So
yeah,
planning your cases, just talk us through your typical consult. If someone's coming to you for a cosmetic consultation, how does that look? What's the sort of workflow there?
So I don't really do many just cosmetic consultations. Most of my patients come in just for general dentistry. So it's just a general consultation. So the most important thing is how you introduce yourself. So I always go down to reception. Our practice is over like 3 floors, and my floor is the top one. So my clinic, my surgery is the penthouse, as I refer to it. So
yeah,
I make the trek
I like
downstairs, and I always find that if that sort of like trek up the stairs, chatting to the patient, that's the introduction. And then when they actually get to the top, they're out of breath and they can't like moan about being scared to see you, and and you sort of know their life story already before you got into the room. Then it's just like very chill. I find some dentists can be quite pressury, like what do you not like about your teeth, blah blah blah. Just sort of be very chill about it and like what's going on. And then like I always find it's never at the very beginning of the checkup they allude to anything cosmetic that they want to change. It's always at the end like, oh, I've got this chipped tooth and I want to fix, or I'm maybe interested in like straightening my teeth. But it's always once they've scoped you out, I think, that they want to sort of ask about extra things. But yeah, so first things chit chats, then sort of regular exam, nothing too fancy. I always do like a full photography series on every patient, even just for like a routine checkup. And 9 times out of 10 patients will be like, this is the most in-depth checkup I've ever had. I've not done anything different to anyone else. I've just taken lots of photos and shown them everything that's going on.
Yeah, have you got a screen in the surgery or just literally on the camera?
Yeah, or it's not like one of those fancy practices with like big TV screens everywhere just yet. So we've got like a small like computer screen at the end of the chair. So just put it up there, just point at things on the X-rays, point at pictures. And so one thing I've actually, so with like occlusion and guidance, that's one thing I've only recently sort of started to get to grips with. And it's actually something that really you can show people very well in photographs. So if you get some really good retracted photos of them just biting together, and then get a retracted photo with them going into like a lateral excursion, and you sort of talk them through like canine guidance, and this is why your tooth keeps chipping, because you're whacking against it all the time. So yeah, that's one thing I've sort of little top tip.
Yeah, I think that kind of stuff's really valuable. I do, annoyingly, I don't do any Invisalign stuff, but we've got a couple of guys that are doing loads of it. So if I have a consult, because we do some cosmetic consults, sort of promotion kind of thing every now and then, and you do that photo and you show them the twisted lower lateral and the worn lateral above it, and you go, there you go, and they go, okay, and then straight like that you've already got them on the Invisalign. And it's not cosmetic, it's going to benefit you with this, that, So I think photos are definitely good. You do any scans? Because that was going to be my New Year's resolution. That was like every new patient I'm going to scan, and
I don't scan every patient. So our practice is over 3 floors, and the scanner's on the top floor, so I'm there most days. Apart from Mondays when Raman or orthodontist is in, I get kicked out of my surgery. So on Mondays it's a bit of a battle for me to like try and squeeze in if I need to take a scan for anything. I don't really take scans if patients have like said, oh, I might be interested in teeth straightening, or if they said they want to like change something with their teeth. So it's quite a good way just to have all the records. And I found especially with COVID, a lot of my patients quite like just to minimize the amount of visits. So a lot of time if they even just like whisper on passing that they might be interested in Invisalign at some point in the future, I've got all the photos, I've got a scan.
You got the baseline.
If they come back in 3 months' time and say they want to get started, I can send off the records without any big issue, and it saves them a trip.
Yeah, that's smart.
So it does save some time, but then also like the outcome simulation is really good with in the iTero. So I find that's really good. You send it across them, just get your nurse, your assistant like trained to do all that, and it's all done before you've even thought about it. So scanning. We've also got the prime scan, but I've not really used the ortho function on that just yet.
Yeah, but you do mainly Invisalign though, right? So the iTero is going to be, it's built in, isn't it? So it's probably simpler. But if a patient then comes to you and says, look, I want, or you've had this conversation and you've won them over with your chat on the stairs, what are you looking at in terms of the planning of a bonding case?
First thing is, well, basically what they want to change, because I used to work in a practice in Wimpole Street, and everyone wanted that very fake, square, everything flat, look like piano keys look, which is fine if they want that. That's not an issue. It's sort of just understanding what the patient actually wants to achieve, first of all, because they might have an idea that they want something to look in a certain way. So a lot of the time, if they're interested in bonding at the checkup appointment, I'll do a mock-up. So just get some flowable composite, whack it on the teeth, quick polish, just get it in a rough shape, just be like, this is what it can look like. It takes 5 minutes to do, and it's most of the time patients are like, yeah, I want to do that. That looks really good.
And do you do any, do you like take a stent of that or anything like that, or photos of it? Or
yeah, I'll take a photo and then I'll email across them like the before and after photo. Just so they have an idea. And what I always tell patients to do is take a selfie, because they know the angle that they want their teeth to look good at.
Yeah, that's a good point.
So, and they'll
probably do the same pose all the time.
And they're going to send it to all their friends, be like, oh, what do you think of this? So that's what I always get them to do. And it's also easier than you taking a photo.
That's a really good point, actually, because that's you're going to have their 2 or 3 poses or whatever it is, and they're going to want it to look right at that moment. That's important to them, isn't it? That's really clever. A couple of questions a couple of people that asked was how much material or how little material. I always sort of have the thing when I look at it and go, well, this is such a tiny amount of filling, it's not going to be very strong. Do you have any sort of limits on how little you'd put, or do you generally find if you're getting the occlusion right, you'll be okay?
It depends. Sometimes when it's very, very small, you just have the very honest chat with the patient, like, I could just polish this and it would look the same. So just like disc the edge. So sometimes you just do that if it's a tiny little incisal fracture. With larger stuff, again, using the mock-up gives you an idea of what's going on, gives the patient an idea as well of like what it looks like. It's a bit longer. If you're closing spaces, it also helps you with sort of getting proportions right. So you've got big spacing cases that want composite bonding, and then you do the composite bonding and they look like tombstones because they're too wide. So that's when you'd be like, actually, you need to do some orthodontic treatment to space everything out so the proportions are going to be better. So yeah, the mock-up's really valuable with that, and the patient actually is like, actually, yeah, he's not chatting shit.
So you're doing freehand mock-up for most cases? Do you ever do wax up?
Never really do wax ups.
You like to have the dry run?
Veneer cases, I would do, or like more rehab stuff. But most of the time, I just do it direct. And if you were to do a wax up, are we going for an imp or a scan? Because it is an Impression Club live at the end of the day. So I would do an impression.
Yes. There we go. We covered it now. That's it.
I'm very fortunate. My lab works my lab technician's in the practice with me, and he's like capable of taking scans, but he would have to outsource the scan to like get it printed or milled. So it adds like a few extra days into the cost of it. So I take an impression, disinfect it, and throw it next door.
Down the stairs. That's ideal, man.
And because I've got an interesting case with Raman, or orthodontist, coming up. He's got fixed ortho currently, and it's going to be like a full mouth rehab. So we were talking about doing provisional composite build-ups and then transferring to porcelain. So ideally, I would want to take a scan, because then you can digitally remove the brackets rather than having Raman to take off the brackets and then take the impression. So we were just figuring out the logistics of that.
That's quite fancy.
That's the pro of, I guess, of digital with stuff like that. But then Rich, my lab technician, he is like, I can do a digital wax up, but you don't get the feel of the teeth. He's very passionate about having feel of the teeth, and
it's very tactile.
The occlusion, so he prefers analog.
We just had a question from Daphne. She's saying, are the quick mock-ups bonded in place? So just give us a quick 30 seconds on how you actually do these bond or the mock-ups.
Dry the teeth. You can put some rubber. You can put an Optricate in if you want. Just keep the lips out of the way. Dry the teeth. No adhesive, no etching. Just put it straight on the teeth. Most of the time, if you're really good at it, you don't really need to like disc or polish them at all. I just said to the patient before, this is a quick mock-up. It's not glued onto the teeth. The colour's not 100%. It's not blended in, so it's just a very rough outline idea. So they know they're not expecting perfection. And then just give them a very quick look at what things, and you sort of be like, okay, this is more of a square look, this is more of a natural look. What do you think? Get some feedback, and you can always take away from what the patient has said. But yeah, that's what I do. So like anyone asks about veneers, anyone asks about anything anterior cosmetic work, just do that, and you can transfer it to any treatment.
Mm-hmm. Perfect. So we've planned a case then. So let's just go through actually executing. Well, I know you've got a couple of cases that you want to show as well. So do it as you wish. But people want us to cover sort of isolation. So you said Optrogate there. Are you doing Optrogate foot, or are you damming? Are you split damming?
I tend to use rubber dam. In most cases. Either it depends what you're doing. If you're just doing edge bonding, there's absolutely no excuse why you can't be putting rubber dam on, because it's easy. You don't have to fully invert everything. Just put it on. If there's a fixed retainer in place, just do a split dam, put some bite registration up behind it to seal it, and easy peasy. Optrogate, it's fine, it's good. I tend to use Optrogate for like if I'm removing attachments before, or like I've got an old restoration to remove first. Then I put the rubber dam on afterwards. And then for the final polishing, putting the Optrogate back in, just so you can sort of see everything a bit more clearly. Or if you're working around the gums, it makes it a bit easier to finish sometimes. But yeah, rubber dam most of the time. But my first principal, when I graduated, she's quite very like petite lady, very petite blonde lady, and she was the most terrifying person I've ever met in dentistry. Because she made herself like a big person. And she would say, like, if you're doing any composite, you must put a rubber dam on. And she sort of just did that to shake us up, because she doesn't use rubber dam all the time, but she put the fear of God into me that I had to use rubber dam all the time, and I did. So I use it all the time. And do you know what? When you do it all the time, it's just easier.
Yeah. It's the same as anything, isn't it, really?
Yeah.
Someone asked about as well, any prep for the teeth. I'm assuming they mean drill-wise prepping. Are we talking bevels or anything like that?
So for like a composite veneer, I would not do a veneer prep.
Obviously, yeah.
But so it depends if it's edge bonding, I tend to disc the edge. So if there's any sharp bits, I just tell the patient, you've got some sharp edges in the teeth, you just need to smooth it all out. Then I tend to bevel, but I would bevel just with like a really coarse disc, rather than doing any actually like taking a burr to a tooth. I think patients feel a bit more chilled about that as well.
And then you can still write no drilling on your.
But no, yeah, just like a nice bevel, but like just soften everything, because if you've got really harsh angles underneath it, it shows through, and it's more difficult to blend on top. So yeah, just that's what I tend to do, just disc.
Fine. And the bigger cases, then you did a case the other day of showing what shades you're using and using tints, and so is that for every case, or you do it in just like single shade for some?
I think once you've done, you sort of build up to it. So like you'll start off, you'll use a single Vita shade composite you'll get your anatomy correct, and then you'll sort of get bored of that, and then you'll start using enamel and dentine.
Yeah.
And then like you'll see some cases come back like, well, that's okay, but it's not perfect. And then you like start putting some like transopal in, and then you'll start putting like white stains and different effects on the edges of the teeth and stuff. So I wouldn't jump straight into going to like the lengths that I maybe do sometimes, but I think I just enjoy it though. So it's
and the results speak for themselves. Tadfi's got a really important question about tints. Which one do you use for your hair?
It's all grown out.
I missed the white blonde look, man.
I know, that was a bit harsh though. My mom didn't like it.
Okay, you got in trouble. Did you? It was good. That was lockdown one.
Yeah, she was not impressed with that. So hopefully I'm allowed to travel and go home to Belfast soon. So I've decided to grow it all out.
Okay, good. That's a sensible plan. So what's, in terms of your tints and everything like that, quick chat on like just materials then. What brand? I think you use Ivoclar a lot.
So I use Ivoclar is because that's what we have at Boolean. So there's obviously like pros and cons to every material. Ivoclar, there's always air bubbles and everything.
Okay.
Loads of air bubbles. But it's what I'm used to using. I've figured out sort of how much to put in bits to like mask things and how to like bevel it and how to make it look natural. So I use Ivoclar. There's lots of other systems out there that are really good, but that's what I tend to use. And it's with the stains and tints that I use, I just bought the Ivoclar kit because it had it all in, and I use all of those. So I've used some of the Venus ones before, they're nice. I would maybe try them again, but I've got the Ivoclar kit, so.
And polishing protocol, I know everyone wants to know polishing protocol. So you've done all your tints and your layers and all of that. And
yeah,
what kits are you using? What, are you using burrs and discs, and what? Just go through the whole shebang.
So what I do is once you've done your final layer, so your final enamel layer, I would do a coarse polish. So I tend to use like a coarse disc, just to get your sort of rough primary anatomy. Then I use Optibond FL Bottle 2, and I coat the tooth in that. So Optibond FL Bottle 2 is like a really highly filled, low flowable. So it basically, any little voids or air bubbles, or do you know when you're doing Composite Bond, you get that like white line? Yeah. Sometimes it just infills any little voids. So I do that like pure glycerin. And then I start like the final polishing. So then basically working down discs. So like from your coarse to your fine discs, and just refining the anatomy each time. So just not going too far. I've started using, you can use pencils and things to get your line angles, which are good as well. I don't really use pencils that often. The Enhance, someone mentioned these to me on Instagram ages ago. Enhance polishers by Dentsply.
I use those, yeah.
They're really coarse, so don't, but I use them to do that sort of secondary anatomy.
Yeah.
They're also amazing for taking off attachments.
Oh, okay.
So do like a gross removal of your attachments with like a burr, and then do the final bit with this, because it doesn't remove enamel, so you won't get scratching. So
yeah, I use those quite a lot, sort of posteriorly, when you've got like an awkward edge or anything like that, and just buzz that off, and that's quite handy for that. Because it's almost a cross between using a polisher and a burr almost. So you can actually do things a little bit quicker. The cup one's quite handy for sort of angles and stuff, but I don't do really any sort of anterior. Maybe a single thing.
So then I've done that. Then I use the ASAP polishing wheels. They're my favorite. Absolute go-to. So there's the purple and there's the pink one. The purple one, it's not as abrasive as the Enhance, but it will remove composites. So I use it to like soften everything, like soften your secondary anatomy, just get everything nice and smooth and flowing. And then I go over with the pink one, which doesn't remove anything, but it just gets everything so glossy. And then like take some photos, have a look, and then I tend to do my tertiary anatomy after that. So that's like getting just a burr and like running really slowly to get your little sort of horizontal lines, and then going over again with the pink just to get everything super shiny. But if you've done too much, just go over again with the purple just to soften it, and then go over the pink again. So I polish, and then I do tertiary, then I polish again.
So on something like a 6-unit, like a 3-to-3 case, how much time do you think you're spending on polishing? Or are you just super slick on that now, and you're just in the rhythm?
So 3-to-3, I would probably book 2 hours total time. Polishing, you're probably looking at a good like 20 minutes. But that's like faffing, taking photos. Taking photos is really important, because you'll see things on a photo that you won't see with your naked eye, just from the lighting and things. So that's take loads of photos, and then just have a look at them, and then go over and then check. And there's actually a few cases where there's an air bubble that I need to then drill out and then rebond and fill it in as well.
So what do you do in that situation? That you're taking literally a burr to it?
Yeah. So either I would use like the Enhance or the purple to like open it up, or just a burr. and then just etch bond and fill it up and then polish again. It's very annoying.
Yeah, I can imagine. Instrument-wise, what are you using on that? Like, yeah, Optrosculpt kind of guy. If you're sticking on the Ivyclar stuff.
Optrosculpt, I really like. I've used brushes and stuff before, but like brushes, the cross-infection stuff is a bit wishy-washy, and they're very expensive if you're just replacing them. There's the Style Italiano ones where you can they're like metal nibs that go on. They're quite good, but they're quite expensive. Optrosculpt's easy. I also use the Style Italiano LM Art kit. I only ever use the pink, green, and grey ones from that. The brown one always breaks, and the purple one I find a bit redundant, but that's what I use.
I'll trust you. I'll trust you on that.
I've also got some of Monix composite instrument strip kits. They're really nice. They're really high quality. But I'm just used to using the LM Art ones, so that's my go-to for anterior and posterior. So it's just easy.
Rick says he's glad it's not just him with the air bubbles and emperors.
I think it's a bit notorious for having air bubbles in it.
But for you, the other sort of qualities of it, it's you just learn how to deal with that, and no system's going to be perfect, is it? So
yeah, and it's more that I'm just comfortable with how to layer it.
Yeah,
so
yeah. And well, you mentioned like Monique there. So courses wise, was there any particular one for you that made a difference, or was there a mentor? What do you think it was for you?
So I've done them all pretty much. And I find like you don't go to one course and learn everything from it. You'll go to multiple courses and you'll take little snippets from it. And then you might not even realize that you've taken it away. And then a few years down the line, you're like, actually, I learned that in that course. I'm going to try that again. Monix is really good. So it's just like general composites, veneers and stuff. I think, well, when I did it, when he was first starting off in like 2016, so this is like in the dark.
You're on the first focus as well. You're trendset and first isolate as well. You're an early adopter.
Always getting there.
We'll get you on the first art to complete. Yeah, you come into that.
Game for that. Monix is really good, but it was sort of like it didn't really show you like the layering that I'm doing right now. From my memory, but I may be incorrect. I did Rodri Thomas's composite course last November. That was like a bit of a game changer.
Yeah, I did. That's amazing.
I had all the gear that he uses Emperors as well most of the time. So I had all the tints and stuff, and I was using them a bit, but it was like the kick up the bum that sort of made me start to like really, I can do this. I can make things look like a different level.
I love that. It's the way he just looks at dentistry as a whole as well, and it's just such a great speaker. So yeah, no, definitely, I'm with you on that. Even I did a composite course to do it with Rodri. Richard Lee has just dropped on saying a tip for porosities: sandblast, wash, etch. Wash, dry, Optibond FL bottle 2, and then flowable.
Yeah.
You just sort of blend it over. Someone just popped on asking, do you ever use putty stent with a wax up? And if not, what are your sort of freehand top tips? Would you give any top tips for freehanding it?
I don't really do putty. Well, I don't do wax ups, so I don't really use a putty stent. You can use them for if you've got an existing restoration that you like the shape of. That's quite good. So it's a good way just to mimic it and makes it a bit easier. I tend to just use a clear strip. That I'm very basic.
And if you're sort of freehanding in general, then just use finger or clear strip behind, build up
so clear strip and
bit of
finger.
composite. Yeah.
If you're doing like big interproximal, the sort of posterior sectional matrices are really good. But yeah, that's just clear strip. Pretty much everything.
Do you do the flow? What Roger talks about, the flowable contact on the contact technique for that sort of wedging in and.
So I just tend to use normal composite. I don't really use flowable for that. But I tried out in the course and worked well in the course, but I'm sort of stuck my ways with that.
Yeah. That's fine, man. So you've got a couple of cases that you wanted to flick through. Do you have those?
How do I flip my?
I think
Here we
somewhere
go.
in the middle. There we go. Look at
Here we
that.
go. Okay, black screen.
Oh,
Ooh.
oh.
Here we go.
Oh, I say.
We've got some photos of teeth. So this is like the one I did last weekend.
The other day, yeah.
So this is my sort of basic layering. So this case, I haven't got the pre-op photos, but he had Invisalign. He had really severe palatal wear and incisal wear on the centrals. So we did some Invisalign just to create some space and improve the bite. And with this case, it was quite interesting. So he just wanted composite bonding to start off with. He didn't have any interest in doing any orthodontic treatment. But then I did a mock-up just to show him what would happen if I just did composite bonding, and he bit down it straight away and it pinged straight off. So that was it. He has to have Invisalign because he didn't believe me, but he believed me after that. So I've done, don't know if you can see, like a light bevel with the coarse disc. This is my enamel layer using my clear strip. Optibond FL. Bond is probably something really important that people don't really talk about. I use either Optibond FL or SE Protect, depending on what the majority substrate you're bonding to. So anteriorly, it's mainly enamel, so Optibond FL with total etch is the best to do. Posteriorly, with composite restorations, if you're mainly bonding to dentine, SE Protect is what you should be using. That's like biomimetic training that I've been doing.
Yeah, you're doing that with Alaman, aren't you?
Yeah. So, yep, that's that. And then we've got our dentine layer. So it's sort of look at the adjacent teeth with what you're working with and what you're sort of aiming to. But yeah, so just a little bit of dentine, just bring it over the edge of your margin. And then I use my LM Art Fissura, the green one, to sort of get some little bits of anatomy. Don't make it perfect, make it a bit wonky. Nothing in nature and teeth is perfect. So like this bit is a bit of a weird bit here, but that's absolutely fine.
Perfect imperfections.
Yeah, and then using my Optrosculpt just to like soften everything.
With the Optrosculpt, are you using just the pads? Because they do the sort of cone ones as well.
Yeah, I find them a bit fiddly because they're never at the right angle, or so yeah, I just use the pads and then I use my instruments because you can get much crisper angles with using your instruments with a sharper point. Then I've used some of the Empress Ochre stain. So I've just put a little bit, that's maybe a bit much there, just along the edge, and this just gives you that incisal halo. And I don't know if it comes across on this, but you can just see on this lateral there's like a little sort of glow along the edge. So that's what we're aiming to do.
So are you pre-planning this? Are you doing, are you looking at this with photos, or are you just literally doing it at the,
just
photos
look
of
at the adjacent
or
teeth.
just literally on the day?
Yeah, literally on the day, just look at the adjacent teeth. So looking at the adjacent teeth, this is probably where I should have started this. Obviously they're slightly dehydrated, but you've got some sort of white internal textures in that. You've got a light incisal halo, but there isn't like surface textures really flat. So yeah, that's what we're sort of aiming for. So we've got some whites and we've got some sort of oranges. So that's what we're going to go for. So I've used the ochre just to do that, and then I put a little bit just on the mamelons just to sort of give like some internal pops of color. Yeah, so that's that. Then this is sort of interesting. So this is like, I started doing this for some posterior stuff and then it worked quite well. Then I started doing it for some anterior bonding and it worked really well. And then I was watching my technician layer some veneers, and he actually does it with his veneers with ceramic work. So what I do is with white, just on a micro brush, just lightly dab it over the sort of where you're bonding. So I've just sort of got white and I've just lightly dabbed it on all the mamelons and sort of bring it up over slightly, and it just gives you some of that internal white sort of textures. And it depends what you're aiming for. So here I've done it below my transopal effect, so it will give you more muted, but then sometimes as well I would do it above my transopal effect. which we're coming to shortly. But that's like a little top tip because it helps to just blend everything in, but also makes it look quite cool, which is what we're aiming for.
Do you practice these kind of things? Do you get like typodonts, or are you literally just doing it, playing with it, literally while you're doing cases?
What I was saying from the start, like, go step by step. So do it with a single shade, do it with enamel and dentine, try putting some transopal in, then sort of start doing stuff like this. This is what I've just sort of built up to. So try to think what the next level is. Then we've got transopal. So transopal just gives that slight sort of glow, bluey hue. Sometimes you can use the blue effects, but I find it sometimes a bit much. And it would be far too much sort of that transparent, translucent effect on the incisal sort of edge. But I think this gives it a bit more sort of natural transparency. And we can see there's some little air bubbles there, which you can't notice in real life, but you can see on this photo. I use the flow because I find you get less air bubbles. And the trans just tends to like mute everything slightly underneath, so you can already see the ochre starting to mute slightly, but it's still there. Then I've gone in, I think I put some white on top of this, but I haven't got a photo of it. So just dabbing the white along the edge and then just bringing up the side just as a bit of a highlighter. So I use the, girls probably understand this more, but girls use highlighter on the top of their cheekbones to make them pop. That's what I'm doing with it on here. And I do it with posteriors as well, so it just adds a little bit of internal texture to it. Then I've done my enamel, so I've used Optrosculpt. You can probably see a few pad marks just to blend it all in. And then, tucking it in with your clear strip and just getting a very rough shape. So then I would go over this with a coarse disc, and then I'd rebond it with bottle 2 of FL just to fill in any slight voids. Then that's it polished. And you can sort of see, so maybe there's a little bit too much of the ochre here, but it looks cool. But you can see there's little sort of white, like clouds almost. You've got your halo. You can see some of the mamelons, but it doesn't look like fake, just triangles. So it looks quite nice. I was quite proud of that one.
Gorgeous, mate.
And some different angles. So you can see we've got a little bit of secondary anatomy. And then I think I actually just used the what they called those polishing cups we were talking about earlier.
The Dentsply ones. The
enhanced ones. So I think I just used those because some of them have are quite coarse. So that just gave a little bit of that. So I didn't use any burrs in this case actually. And then if you wanted to remove those, you could just go over with your purple ASAP polishing wheel, and that would just smooth that all out. But I quite liked it, so I just kept it, and then just going over the pink. And then I normally use a yellow IPR strip interproximally just to remove any excess and smooth everything. That's pretty much it. And that's with everything off. And then just a bit of tidy up afterwards. Sometimes you can find that you get like excess resin and stuff in around the gum lines. So just using your scaler and then polishing everything a bit more. Check your occlusion and you are done.
I'm just becoming a useless host now, and I'm just admiring it as well. No, definitely I'll be saving it as a highlight for if you want to rewatch it, guys.
Cool. That's like what I do most of the time.
So we've got a couple of questions. Do you want to do them now, or do you want to go through another case? Yeah. So someone first up just said, have you got any tips for students, like dental students, in terms of leveling up? I'm assuming you're going to say just think about the basics. You've already sort of said.
Think about the basics. Sort of figure out what you want to do and invest your money wisely. Because I get loads of questions asking like, what should I do a master's? Should I do this year-long course? I've not done any year-long courses because I find some of the teachers are very good at like one area of it, and then they sort of get other people in to cover the rest of it. I would rather personally select these people. These are the courses I want to go on for these certain areas. So we touched on a few like Monic, Rodri, Manesh photography. I'm trying to think what else. So I did like Sam Jethwa's smile design course because he's really good at smile design. So that's where I learned the mock-up technique. And I found all these people through Instagram. Yeah. So
University of Instagram.
University of Instagram, indeed.
Naomi, I agree. It's Stewart, absolutely. Someone's asked in that case, did you use any trans layers?
Yeah. Let me flip back. So I've done my denting layer. I've done some effects. I've done a white and done the ochre effect, and then I go on top of that with the trans opal. I use the trans opal flow from Ivoclar. You can get, there's like trans 20 and trans 30. It's like a composite, but I quite like the flowable because it's quite easy to manipulate and you don't need very much. And in my head, it sort of flows into the mamelons and stuff a bit easier. And you're meant to get less air bubbles, but good old Ivoclar.
We need to rename this just Stuart talking about air bubbles.
Yeah.
Next question on that was what camera setup are you using and sort of settings and bits like that? Obviously, you talked about Minesh. We've both done focus.
I've done focus twice.
You've done it twice because you were the early adopter, and then you
Yes.
wanted to get your hands on the bounce cards. So what? I mean, that for me, that is such a good photography course. So that's the one you need to do.
Yeah, I think that's. I don't know if there's any other. They're all other ones are like a bit wishy-washy, but I think Minesh is more about the actual like art behind it.
Yeah.
So I just went on his course because I wanted to take those cool photos where you like blacked out backgrounds of lab work. That's why I went on the initial one. I thought my photography was actually okay, but it was not okay. So yeah, it really does level you up. So I used to be using a Nikon D7200. I had an 85mm lens, and then I swapped after meshes to a 60mm lens. And I had twin flashes on an oil bracket with soft boxes. This year, I've treated myself, so I've got I jumped ship to Canon. So I've got a Canon 60, I know, trader. Canon 60 Mark II with twin flash. I've got Minesh's fancy bouncers on an oil bracket.
Okay. And you've got your portrait. With that portrait that you took there, was that with those new portrait kits?
Yes, but this was at my old practice in Wimpole Street, so I didn't have like the stands, so they were like precariously placed, so that's why they did the flash setting. Minesh would be horrified by them. But yeah, that's why it wasn't the best portrait, which is why I didn't spend a lot of time on it.
Yeah, click.
Yeah, so I use, my idea was that I would have like a Canon and Nikon, one for like anterior, one for posterior, but you just use one.
Yeah.
So I'm planning to send, I've actually got 3 camera setups. I've got 2 Nikons and 1 Canon, so my sister will be receiving one of the Nikon ones shortly.
For her birthday.
Yeah, very late birthday.
Eric's just asked, Stuart, what were you saying again about going back with adhesive to fill in the voids?
So
tips for your voids.
So I do a rough polish once I've done my final enamel increment. So just give you your rough anatomy, remove any sort of gross excess, and then I rebond it. So I go over again with Optibond FL Bottle 2, which is essentially a very runny filled composite. And it just fills in any little voids on the surface and any little air bubbles and just helps to smooth everything out. The majority of that you're going to polish off anyway. So people will talk about like staining and stuff, but that tends to be the HEMA, which I don't think FL Bottle 2 has, essentially.
Big
yeah,
statement.
So you're polishing most of it off, but the bits that you're not polishing off are in the voids that you want to fill up.
Yeah. So I just asked if you could just go into the Smile Design course, a little bit more info on that. So who was running it again and sort of what kind of stuff did you cover?
Yeah, so it was Sam Jethwa. So he's someone I've followed on Instagram for ages. He's based in London and he does just veneers all the time. So I did his course mainly because I just started bullying and I wanted to know more about veneers because I hadn't really done many before. So I learned about Smile Design, but I do veneers, but I tend to do a lot more composite bonding because a lot of my patients are quite young, so it's quite a big jump when you could just do some composite bonding on the edges of the teeth.
Yeah.
So yeah, so Sam it was, I think it was 8 days over like multiple weekends, and you'd get to treat an actual patient. So I had a lovely patient who I was doing 10 unit veneers on her upper teeth, but she was class 3 and we were jumping the bite and it was horrifically complicated. Yeah, but it was really good. But then I sort of, cementing the veneers went a bit of a mess, and Sam had to fix it for me. But I learned so much from that because Sam was there to fix it, and he goes through all the principles of smile design, what to look at, how to sort of say like this tooth needs to be longer, this tooth needs to go back a bit. Is really good, and he does the mock-up technique, so he does the flowable composite mock-up technique that I use.
So you're using flowable, not sort of old. You're actually doing it just straight in flowable rather than a regular.
Just flowable or just composite with your Ultrasculpt. It depends. If you're just doing the edges of the teeth, I find flowable very easy to manipulate. But if you're trying to show like bulk movement of like a surface like a veneer, it's easier just to throw it on with an Ultrasculpt.
And I don't even remember when it was the last time we hung out, but you were talking about you were doing more veneers, or you were focusing a bit more on that and doing courses and stuff. So are you starting to go more that way, or are you veering back again? It sounds like you might be sort of veering back to composite.
No, I don't think people should have like, oh, I just do veneers in their armamentarium. I think you should be able to do both, because not everyone wants veneers. And a lot of time people come to see me and they want veneers. I'm like, you just want Invisalign.
How many of your cases would you say are having Invisalign?
Most would have. But I find Invisalign I was reading one of Rona's posts today that Invisalign is just one of the pieces in the puzzle. A lot of the time, so you need to always say you're going to need
foundation.
Yeah. So you might have nice straight teeth, but you're going to be like wonky edges because they're all worn down. So you need to have something else afterwards, and you can do veneers afterwards, or you can do edge bonding or composite veneers. I tend to prefer edge bonding.
Yeah, I thought we weren't going to say the composite veneer. And you mentioned about working obviously with your technician, Richard, as well, in house. Like that must be pretty cool to be able to pop downstairs or next door, and you sort of said you picked up tips from what he's doing in actual, firing of veneers and things like that, and just give us a little insight into that. That must be
so
cool.
It's like I'm just absolutely spoiled, essentially.
Yeah.
So he works in the room next to me. So if I've got a question about something, I go and ask him. And I didn't really speak too much. He's a bit scary for the first year and a half. So I did some veneer cases, and you sort of just send like a normal lab. You just send your impressions, send the shade, and then it would come back. But then I had a couple of really interesting, just central veneers, which are horrifically horrendous to do. And he comes in, he does the shade match, and then sort of you just pop in and you ask him questions, and he sort of gets. It's sort of, you start to get a relationship with working together. He's like, oh, do you want to try this next time? So I've just been doing Emax veneers, and Rich had just joined. He's just on Instagram. Everyone follow him, Rich Art.
Rich Art. Oh yeah, no, I'm already on it.
So and then I think he just looked at some of my photos, and he's like, do you know what? They're good, but they don't look a bit. Emax I find looks a bit grey sometimes. And it can look okay, but I find Emax a veneer on a single tooth looks a bit sort of flat. So I had it was a friend of my friend. She had two old, as a case I posted recently, two old veneers that were NHS veneers from 20 years ago.
But these ones with the margin had shifted up.
Yeah.
Oh mate, that case was so good.
So Rich was like, let's do phosphatic. And I had just been like, oh, phosphatic's going to break. It's horrendous to work with. And I don't know why everyone has got very negative connotations with working with it. And I mean, it was just a veneer. It was an incredibly thin veneer, but it was a veneer. But it's just a different level completely to Emax veneers. So I think I would probably be using phosphatic from now on. But going back to working with Rich, he comes in, he takes the shade for me. He picks the cement that I use to cement it with, the colour of that. I literally don't do any of the work. I just glue it onto the teeth. And it's really good with he can. So with bigger veneer cases, sometimes it looks okay in the model. You do a try, and actually you need more ceramic here. You need to adjust this line angle. And I get Rich in the room every single time, and I'd be like, I want this to change, this to change. It goes away for half an hour, it comes back, and then we go from there.
It's the dream. I don't know if Ricardo's on here, but I keep telling him we've got a little lab in the practice. He needs to move to Reading to sort that out. Would be ideal. Someone's just asked IPR tips, because I guess we're chatting on the Invisalign. Have you got any tips for IPR? What do you use? Have you got the little? I've seen they've got like little
The little
saws
like
now that.
rectangles.
Yeah.
I've tried those. They're quite good. They're easy because I find usually like in between premolars, it's just a nightmare. They've got like a really small mouth and they're like loads of saliva. They're quite good for that, but I tend to just use strips. It depends as well with sort of the angulation of teeth, because I did the IAS fixed ortho course with a NUP, and because normally you want, when you're doing IPR, the like contact points to be together, so then you can actually do like 0.3 and you can measure it. He talked about, so if you've got a tooth that's rotated, just take a disc and polish it a bit and then do a bit more. So it's slightly less accurate, but you can sort of gauge, okay, it's quite rounded, let's just flatten off a bit with the disc. So I do that as well sometimes, but I don't like using burrs. I'm a bit scared of like the mosquito burrs, which I know a lot of people do. Or you can get those like terrifying saws that rotate. Which I used once because they have to go in like a straight handpiece and they're just very scary.
I wouldn't fancy that. If anyone's got any more questions, pop them in. Did you have another case that you want to run through, or was
I can do. Let me see.
Have you got the that one lateral case?
Which case was that?
The one that had the really big diastema to start with.
Oh yeah, I've just got
that one's madness.
Oh, I can do this one's quite a good one.
Go for it.
So this patient, she's called Rose. Really nice patient. She's been seeing me for like a year. We've done some like fillings and stuff, and I've always said to her, like, Rose, what is this? Fix it out. So if we go to the retractor, so she's got an old. This is like a peg lateral. She's missing the other lateral. She's not that fussed about doing anything else, but this is old. It stains, and she doesn't like it. So we did some like teeth whitening, not that you can really tell from these photos. But we did a little bit of teeth whitening, and she was happy with the color. But she's got some really interesting characterization in her teeth. So she's got like white speckling. She's got like little brown vertical lines. The edges aren't even. It's a bit dreamy, if you like all this stuff. But her peg lateral, it's the same width as it is height.
Yeah.
It's the same width as it is height. So even if I just did this, if I did most amazing porcelain veneer, it's going to look rubbish because the ratio, your eyes are just going to think that's really weird, no matter what color and stuff it is. But you need to sort of look at the occlusion. So like look at the canine beside it. It doesn't really look like a canine, it's super flat. And what her limiting factor is when she went to lateral excursion, because she had worn down her canine so much, you can actually increase the length of the lateral at all. So this was part of the consultations, like I showed her, well, this is why this is so short, because when you grind to the side, it has to be that height because you're hitting against it. You're also wearing your other front teeth. So we need to, if you're going to do something to this, let's do something to these two as well, to create some space. So that's it afterwards.
So have you done anything with the gum there at all?
No, that's just didn't do any gum lasering. Or did I? I might have lasered her gum actually, yeah. So a little gingivectomy just to increase the height of the gum. And then this is a composite veneer, essentially. She also had some decay in the middle, which we treated, and then we've also increased the length of the canine. But this was like the week after I did Rodri's course, so I was like
straight into
all guns blazing for this. But yeah, so we've done some internal white speckling, and then on this case I did some white speckling on top of the transopial as well, just to add more depth to it, to make it more in keeping with the adjacent teeth. And then I've done some I didn't want to go over the top because she's quite, as a person, she's quite like introverted, so I didn't want to have like these mad cracks in the teeth. So just a little bit. I used the ochre here, and then I put a little bit of the honey just over the body of the dentine, and then just a little bit of texturing. The edges of the adjacent teeth are they're not perfectly square. They're a little bit chipped, a little bit worn, and they're quite sharp. So from the palatal aspect, like disking it so it like comes to like quite a fine point rather than having really like thick incisal ledges, and then just sort of roughing it up a bit. So,
Did you do anything for the canine on the other side?
No, she didn't want anything.
Ah.
She didn't want anything. But I can't find her photo. I don't have her like before and after photo in this. But her before smile, that's when I was looking back, because she came back to like a 6-month checkup and I was looking at it, and her before smile is like very like low lip, whereas like her after smile you see like her gums and everything, so she was going for it. So she really was trying to like hide it before.
Yeah.
So that's a cool one.
And that's something you've got to bear in mind with sort of planning as well, isn't it? If you've got the patient who's really probably more for like bigger cases where they're sort of really unhappy with it, and you get them to do their before smile, and then suddenly it's the big cheesy grin, and your margins have all, and you suddenly everything's shifted up, and you got to look at that.
Yeah.
It's an important thing to look. Because I had a patient in for a consultation the other day about, she had a couple of bad veneers, a couple of stained composite veneers and things like that, and she was quite gummy to start with.
Yeah.
And she's already like, I hate my smile, I never smile, and she's quite gummy. So I was thinking, oh my days, when this sorts out, it's going to be massive. We got a couple of questions.
Yeah.
Keep them coming as well. Any different polishing protocol for your posterior composites?
Sorry, posterior composite.
Mm-hmm.
What's polish them with?
Yeah.
I don't really polish posterior composites.
They're just perfect to start with.
No, I think Monic, he might have changed, but I think on Monic's course, he was sort of saying they're going to chew on them, and after like 3 days, they'll be fine. Mm-hmm. So I adjust the occlusion. I'll maybe do like the purple ASAP polisher, but that's all I tend to do. I don't really do like the fine polishing, because if you've ever I've had a filling before, and it feels really rough no matter what they do, and then like 3 days later, it feels really smooth once you've chewed on it for a bit. So I don't tend to do any mad polishing on posteriors.
Perfect. I think we might get kicked off. I think it limits you to an hour, so we've got 3 minutes.
Oh wow!
Time flies, eh? Let's do one last one. When you're building up canines for guidance, do you tend to overbuild them and trim back into the occlusion, or are you eyeballing it?
Sorry, well, you should know what a canine looks like, so aim for what it should look like. Obviously, there's going to be movement and things are going to fit together because there's going to be like super eruption because of the worn down. But yeah, I sort of aim for what it should have looked like. You're obviously going to do some adjustment to it palatally, and you just need to make sure, I always say, does it feel like it's a nice smooth transition rather than you're like stuck? Because if they're stuck, that's not good. They're just going to whack it off. It needs to be a nice smooth transition.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, I think that's a similar thing. One of our bonding guys, Woody, he does these like full arch wear cases in like freehand composite.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, how are you doing that? And he's just like, well, you know the anatomy, and it just sort of works when you just know your anatomy. So I still don't get it. But
well, I was the nerd at uni, so we all got given like boxes of teeth, and I literally pick up a tooth and I could like tell you what tooth it was.
Yeah.
And I was like teaching everyone, this is like an upper right 4 because of this. It's got this longer line angle on this mesial aspect or whatever it is. So yeah, just like know your anatomy.
Yeah, massive. Any last top tips? We've got a minute and a half or something.
I tend to buy my own stuff. That would be my first thing. So people ask me like what course I should go on. It's like just buy your own stuff, give it a go. And then we sort of get to the limit of that, then you decide actually maybe go on a course. But buy your own polishing bits. And what I tend to do is like I buy it and then I just tell the head nurse, okay, I want this now. Once it gets lost or gets worn down. Yeah. And
don't let that be an excuse.
It works really well. Yeah.
Yeah. Don't have it be a barrier to not doing.
Yeah.
What you want to do. No, 100%, man.
Buy your own stuff. Practice, take lots of photos.
Yeah, photos is massive, isn't it? Dude, this has been awesome. I think we're going to have to get you on again because clearly we've got so much more to talk about in there. It's going to be saved as an Instagram TV as well, so we can watch back. But I think we're going to have to get you back on, mate. This has been Ace, and I guess I'm going to see you soon.
Thanks for having me.
Pleasure, man. Pleasure. Take it easy, man. Have a good weekend.
See you. Happy Easter, everyone.
See you guys. Happy Easter.